This is the BBC News with Fiona MacDonald. Russia has urged Ukrainians defending the besieged port of Mariupol to surrender, promising them safe passage out of the city on Monday if they lay down their arms. The Defence Ministry in Moscow admitted that a terrible humanitarian catastrophe was unfolding there. The city has endured weeks of Russian bombardment. An advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, Pyotr Andriushenko, told the BBC's Russia service that promises could not be trusted.
First of all, it's absolutely lie, like always. Every time say the Russian army and Russian government. We work with this situation and we try to evacuate our people, but we know there are the situation with the Russian government. When they say about humanitarian corridors, what they really do, they really force evacuate our people for Russia.
The United Nations Refugee Agency says 10 million Ukrainians have now fled their homes because of the war. Since Russia invaded in late February, nearly 3.5 million people have left the country. Jan Egeland is the Secretary-General of the Norwegian Refugee Council.
We're only beginning to grasp the extent of this catastrophe in Europe. I mean, we have to go back to the Second World War to have anything comparable. And I don't think even at that time you would see that more than 3 million people were displaced per week. I mean, it's 3.5 weeks since this started, and now 10 million people have had to flee their homes.
President Volodymyr Zelensky has told the Israeli parliament that Ukraine, like Israel, was facing the threat of utter destruction and asked why it wasn't providing his country with air defence weapons. He said the time had come for Israel to make a choice. The country has so far tried to remain a neutral mediator. From Jerusalem, here's Yolan Nell.
In his virtual international tour, President Zelensky has proven skillful at adapting his message to different groups of lawmakers. Speaking to Israel's parliament on a Zoom video conference, he began by echoing the words of the former Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir, who was born in Kiev. "We intend to live, but our neighbours want to see us dead." Mr. Zelensky, who is Jewish, also compared the actions and words of Russia to those of Nazi Germany in the Second World War. And then he asked why Israel, which has sent humanitarian aid, hadn't posed sanctions on Moscow in line with many Western countries.
More than 60 workers at the decommissioned Chernobyl nuclear power plant have finally been able to leave, after in effect being held there by Russian troops for more than 3 weeks. They'd been stuck there since the 24th of February when Russian troops seized the facility. 46 employees have volunteered to take their place. World News from the BBC. The deputy commander of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, Captain Andrei Pali, has been killed in Mariupol. His death was confirmed by the governor of Sevastopol in Crimea, which was annexed by Russia in 2014. He's the first high-ranking Russian naval officer to be confirmed dead in Ukraine, but other sources have reported the deaths of 5 Russian generals. In other news, Saudi officials say they've intercepted and destroyed what they called a hostile air target over the city of Jeddah. The nature of the projectile is not clear. Earlier, officials reported destroying a number of drones aimed at several Saudi cities by the Houthi movement in Yemen. The Philippine Electoral Commission says it's considering how to proceed after the front-runners in both the presidential and vice-presidential elections in May skipped the first televised debates. The daughter of the current Philippine leader and leading vice-presidential candidate, Sara Duterte, failed to turn up on Sunday. Her running mate for president, the son and namesake of the former Philippine dictator, Ferdinand Marcos, missed his debate on Saturday. Will Leonardo reports.
Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the son and namesake of the former Philippine dictator, was absent from his debate podium on Saturday night. But he wasn't far from the other candidates' minds. A group of them, including his biggest rival, the Vice President Leni Robredo, called on Mr. Marcos to pay what was owed on the estate of his father. The former dictator amassed huge wealth during his rule, spanning 2 decades. Mr. Marcos, who's connected with supporters on social media, has dismissed criticism of his tax affairs as fake news.
Descendants of South Africa's earliest inhabitants have welcomed a court ruling halting the construction of the tech giant Amazon's new Africa headquarters on land they consider sacred. A judge ruled that the rights of the Khoi and San peoples were under threat and said there must be a proper consultation before it can go ahead. BBC News.